today's video, I'm going to be showing you a really cute little design that is a bunch of fronds in the background with a really nice leopard face that's three-dimensional in the foreground. There's also some fronds that are in the foreground too. It's just this really tropical, jungle-like design, and if you wanted to do it as part of a set, you could throw in different animals, a leopard here, a toucan there, maybe some kind of a cool snake. You could really just have some fun with it. I hope you guys like this design as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. Bye!
So we're going to begin with an overlay of just a swirly mix of greens. So to do this, I chose all shimmery ones. Even though this is a somewhat realistic, or actually a quite realistic leopard representation, I wanted to have just this little bit of glamour to it. And so to do that, a little bit of shimmer here and there is basically all you need to give it that realistic plus kind of an idea. So after you have that background done, we're then going to encapsulate it with a layer of clear acrylic. Make sure that that shimmer and the marble stays nice and perfect, just like you sculpted it. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and file this nail into shape with your e-file. One reason I always encapsulate things, and especially anything that's marbled or something interesting in the background, is because I sculpt when I'm doing something that's a marble or an ombre. The acrylic I'm sculpting with is extremely thin. It's watered down. It isn't very polymerized. It's very wet, and that acrylic isn't as strong. And so if you're wearing this and you have just that marbled acrylic, even if it's thick enough to support your nail, to have an apex and to be the thickness you want, that acrylic is a little bit compromised just because of the technique used. And so if you want it to be a really strong, durable nail, sculpt those marbles, sculpt those ombres really thin, and then encapsulate them. That's my personal opinion. That's my technique. I know there's a lot of artists out there that don't encapsulate and are proud of it. And if that's the case for you, all the power to you. My personal thoughts are just that for me, it just seems like it works better. Of course, different product lines, different systems have different strengths, and maybe the one that you're using, if you're somebody that doesn't really prefer to encapsulate, if you don't have any problems, if you don't have lifting, you don't have breakage, then it's not an issue. It's only if you do. And I'm not willing to risk lifting and breakage to test it out usually, especially not on a client. On myself, maybe. But just for the most part, I think it's a safer plan to encapsulate and just, have that peace of mind that nothing is going to happen. So now we're going to start sculpting our little leopard friend. So as you're watching, as I was ranting about encapsulations, you'll see that I'm using a cream color acrylic, and I'm just going to go through and sculpt the basic shape of my leopard. If you want to keep it more simple, you don't have to sculpt in any of that sort of muscle texture that I was sculpting in on the arm and across the back. You could simplify that, certainly. Otherwise, if you kind of want to go all in for it, you got to really make sure that you build up the strength on this cat's arms, just because think about it. Think about what they go through. They're strong animals. So give this kitty cat all of its due muscles so that it can do its hunting and its climbing and its running and its chasing and all that stuff it needs in order to survive on a daily basis. Otherwise, after we have that, I'm just going to do a little bit of detailing on the face. One thing I'm going to do on my little kitty cat's face, I'm going to keep calling it a kitty cat because I can't help myself, is I'm going to sculpt in eyes with a light green, almost like a weird looking shade of light green. Details will come later, but if you use this light green, which has glitter in it, by the way, which kind of ties back into the background color, it makes the eyes look lit within. And then when you go through and you add like the pupil and stuff, it'll look darker and you'll really get to see the eyes where right now they kind of disappear. And you won't necessarily notice that they're this really pale light green, and they'll just look fantastic because they'll have the richness. Like I said, that lit within glow that you kind of want for a cat's eyes especially. So using that really light pastel green with glitter is just a really nice choice for the eyes. I'm going to add eyelids with my cream color acrylic. Again, if you're trying to simplify this, you could skip things like eyelids, the little bits of extra nose details, anything like that you just feel like takes it a little bit too far, go ahead and skip that. Otherwise, if you want to go all in, don't skip anything. We're going to add upper eyelids and lower eyelids, kind of building up that under eye area just a little bit. There's some really deep bone structure that goes on in a cat's face, especially that around their eye, that ocular cavity. And you're going to add in the ear. There's one ear. And then we'll do the other ear. You don't have to do too much of the colorations on your cat with acrylic. In fact, anything like spots, I would certainly not recommend doing with acrylic. The one thing if you did want to do anything as far as coloration, but beyond just the cream color goes, is you can add a little bit of color to the nose, which I just did with pink. And you can add a little bit of like a copper color or a brown onto certain parts of the body as some shading, and anything like a little bit of black I did, just a touch around the nose and the eyes, just a little bit to kind of get that area started. I did more later, so if you wanted to skip that, you could, but I just did a little bit. And then here we go with the copper color, just to add just a little bit of warmth here and there. You don't want to overdo it. You want to definitely leave that cream color as highlights on the fur here and there, but giving it just that bit of warmth, it adds some shading, so it makes the shading easier. And that's only the case if you are comfortable working and adding shading with acrylic. Some people don't like to, which like I said with the encapsulation, you got to figure out what works best for you. And if you like to add shading with acrylic, then you could do more than I did. If you don't like to do shading with acrylic, then certainly by all means do it all with paint. It's completely, up to you and your preferences. I'm going to add a little bit more of that darker brown shade right above that cat's eye. Blend that out with a very wet brush in monomer. That's the thing, when you're doing shading with acrylic, same thing like what I said with the marble, it's very, very thin acrylic. It's a quite wet brush, and you just barely tap it into your polymer so that you pick up just the faintest bit of pigment. You're not even really looking for any of the polymer as far as strength goes. This is just for that touch of pigment. And here's something else, fun fact, if you wanted to make a mountain lion, you would sculpt your kitty cat just like I did up to this point, add some pupils, give it some whiskers, and you'd be done, because he looks just like a mountain lion right now, or a puma, or there's all those different names, a cougar for mountain lions. I'm going to sculpt in, like I said, a little bit of 3D leafage in the background. I'm using that same glittery green color that I used for my cat's eyes. And the other thing with this, like I said, if you're going to do like a puma, that this would be the perfect base for it. There's a whole bunch of different types of cats and leopards, and you could do the same essential starting process and just change coloration. Like a snow leopard would be really cool to do, or a clouded leopard. There's just so many different options. I know that one of my favorite cats, my favorite animal for a long time, probably when I was like maybe in 3rd grade or something, was an ocelot. I just loved ocelots. They're really big spots. They do have a slightly different face shape because their face is really big eyes, shorter from like the nose to ears. That space was a lot shorter. But I mean, you could do the same essential process. You'd have to change certain things, especially for a different type of cat like an ocelot. But you could do the same kind of idea, and you could switch it up and do whatever you want. Tiger, you could do a tiger. They're a little bit bulkier. They're definitely a thicker cat, but they live in a colder climate, so it makes sense. Okay, see, there we go. I'm off rambling about who knows what again. That's what you get when, oh my goodness. Okay, that's just kind of my style. But here we go. We're going to add leaves on our second frond. Do different types of fronds. You don't want to do all the same one. I mean, I guess you could, be up to you. But my personal preference is to give it a little bit of variety. So I've got the one frond that I sculpted first that you saw, like a nice teardrop shaped big leaf. And then this next one has a skinny stem down the middle with a lot of smaller, narrow leaves coming off of it. Fern, like a giant fern type of a style. When you're doing these, if you wanted to do them before you sculpted your cat, you could have, so that you didn't have to worry about working around the cat. The one downfall of that is then you have to then sculpt up and over them with the acrylic for your leopard or whatever kind of feline it is that you're working on. And you might have a chance of getting a little bit of a weird texture on the sides of the face, especially if you're going like up and over leaves. You might get kind of a wavy look on the side, which would be possibly a little less ideal. But however it works for you, either way is fine. Once you have your leaves sculpted in, you have your cat done. If you're going to be doing a leopard like I am, then we're going to be adding some spots. So we're going to just add a little bit of random shaped dark brown spottage here and there across the body, add some more details of spots across the face, smaller spots, and a little bit less circular. Obviously the ones on the body that you just saw aren't circular either, but you want to get even farther away from that circular pattern on the face. Just more like little lines here and there, a couple. Then going back to our body, we're going to be doing the black outlines to our leopard print. If you aren't familiar with painting leopard print, then you're going to just want to know that you have the spot, and then they're called rosette spots. So you've got the black outline around the brown spot. So you've got the brown in the middle. When you go to add the black, don't necessarily make them perfect little outlines. They can have breaks in them. Think almost like parenthesis lines or like 2 lines and a dot. You want them to be kind of randomized, and then different sizes, different thicknesses. Add a couple spots here and there that are just black to fill in any gaps. Add some little dots across the cheeks with the black. Deepen in the lines on the chin. And just keep adding any of the details that you need to. You'll want to do some more on the nose. You'll definitely want to do more on the eyes. Obviously, as I said before, we need to give our kitty cat some things like pupils, deeper facial outlines. You might want to add some more just to the forehead, especially. I haven't really done a whole lot there yet. Really random little tiny dots across the forehead. Obviously, there's some symmetry from side to side, but just try to keep it looking too perfect, I suppose. Add some black to the ears. Just like I said, keep adding more of that dark color. Don't worry necessarily about your cat ending up with too much darkness on it, which is something that I was kind of thinking about because I didn't want him to blend into the background too much. That's kind of part of the idea with this design. And just like the mantle that I just showed you guys, you almost want him to blend in and to not be quite as visible just because he's hidden amongst all of these fronds, and it kind of adds to it if he looks sort of mysterious. Once you're happy with all of your black, you can go through and add just a little bit of white. We're going to add the whiskers, a couple little dots on the chin for chin whiskers, and then the whiskers across the cheeks. Also, you can add a little bit of a highlighting in the eyes. Just a single dot is necessary, and then a little bit underneath the eyes. Couple ear whiskers. Basically, it's the whiskers that get really long and white. There's those little eye highlights. And then once you're done with that, try to figure out a way to wiggle in some gel sealer to the background. Once you have the gel sealer applied all over that background, just to make it look a little bit shiny and lush, apply some matte top coat over the kitty cat and some 3D glaze over the other fronds. And that is it. This guy is all done. I would love to see your recreations, especially if you do a different type of leopard or a different type of big cat. I love them so much. I've always been a huge fan of any kind of, who am I kidding? Any animal. I love animals. So if you have an animal, let me see it. That's my piece. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.